Oh no.
Oh, so we just went live, so I'm not sure if you
Yeah.
want me to say it now, but want me to start off with that, Dave?
Yeah. Hey, everybody, how you doing? It's Dan and Dave. We're glad to be here this evening.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope this tonight finds you well. Dans and I were talking about an iconic person in our area who's left us to be with the Father. That's why I'm wearing this fly fishing shirt. He was an avid fly fisherman, and he passed while he was fly fishing. It's Bryce Jessup, and anybody who knows him, I met him years ago at Adventure. I was actually doing a weekend worship, was filling in for somebody doing a weekend worship there, and he was one of the most kind people, and he still is to this day.
Yeah.
What a life. Seemed to excel at everything, and apparently passing as well, because he did it in his favorite place on the planet, doing the thing that he loved to do.
Yeah.
Fishing, not only men but for fish as well, and he's going to be sorely missed. What did you have for us, Dan? What were you getting ready to say?
Well, it was there's a William Jessup University. Obviously, it was the one that Bryce Jessup's father actually started.
Right.
And Bryce Jessup was key in actually moving it from San Jose up to in Rockland, where it is now. I'm not sure how many people know that are on the call right now, but he and Jim Jessup, Bryce and Jim Jessup, which is Bryce's son, they were actually on a trip together in Yosemite, and they hiked up to 10,300 feet. And which is what he did almost every year for his birthday, as you all know. And he even did handstands on top of, or headstands on top of Half Dome. And but they went fishing, and then they sat back to relax, and that's when Bryce passed. He had a heart attack, and he passed. This is all public knowledge, by the way. Nothing I'm sharing is it's not public knowledge. But Jim Jessup was there with him. Just brings me to tears just thinking about it. As soon as I read this on the email that I received today, I almost burst into tears. Jim was able to hold his dad for 3 hours, waiting for the helicopter to come and retrieve them. And just that peaceful look on Bryce's face, he mentioned, was something that he said, hey, he's now home. And Bryce was one of those ones to always say, hey, you're not done unless you're dead.
Yeah.
And but I have a feeling Bryce right now up in heaven is realizing he's still not done.
Yeah.
He's with his Father in heaven forever. So I just wanted to share that, because what an incredibly special moment, a horrible moment for Jim, but a special moment that he was able to be with his dad for those few hours. And I just thought of my dad, and I thought of all the things my dad's going through. And I'm sure you guys feel the same way. And even with my kids, just really brought it to heart.
Yeah. Randy Brundage, I guess, went to the early stages of William Jessup when it was called San Jose Bible College. And it went from a 12-acre campus to a 120-acre campus, and the student bodies exploded. They say that there's people serving in 50 different countries around the world that have been launched from the training they've received there. And the impact he has had is massive. And just on a personal level, he connected with just about every single staff member at Bayside. I know he did with me. He was very down to earth and open to anybody who wanted to talk to him. So super, super amazing man.
Yep. So. Yeah, when I remember meeting him backstage at Adventure, and it was like a Thanksgiving service. So the first time I'd met him, and then of course I saw him in our staff meetings. For those of you who probably know, he's on our staff, and we have a weekly staff meeting. And then, and for some reason, we started talking about fly fishing, and he just lit up, man. Like it was just this passion, and it's great. You see all these really accomplished people, but you would think Bryce the evangelist, but it's just so much deeper than that. He's a good friend. God just made a spectacular person. Not only this, that generation is super special.
Yeah, it is.
He's in his 80s, right? 85.
Yep, 85.
85. Yeah. June 12th, actually.
And that generation is something to be cherished.
Yeah.
So, Bryce,
Sure.
you will be missed.
Yeah.
But as usual, you did most things better than most people, and even in passing.
Yeah.
Good on you, and we love you. But anyways, we're glad you guys are here. Dan, how was vacation?
Oh my gosh, you guys, it's the first time I think in years I've gone on a break and not cracked my computer or my email open on my phone.
Wow.
Sweet.
It was the truest breakaway I've ever had, and I'm telling
Confession
you,
of a computer addict right there.
oh man, I am definitely. I mean, right now, if you saw what it looks like where I'm sitting, I got two screens right up here. I got my iPad over here. I got my phone over here. But it was truly a much needed break. Tanya and I went up with some friends that own a home in Blaine, Washington. If anybody doesn't know where that is literally on the top northwest corner of the United States in Washington State, about 5 minutes from the Canadian border. So you can go out on the water and see Canada, literally like 10 miles into the distance.
Wow.
So we had a blast. We had a fantastic time
And
together.
the weather was terrible.
Weather was horrible. 75, 80 degrees, light breeze,
It's
partly cloudy.
Hey,
Sounds
Danny,
pretty awful.
Danny Houk, tell us about real quickly. Just to brag on you and Bayside of Santa Rosa. Tell us what you guys did for the restaurants and stuff, and then
Hang on. Boom. I'm trying to do something.
yeah,
he's
I was
checking trying to get on and
he's fishing tomorrow.
Okay. So yes, David. Actually, I was trying to get on Facebook and do what Dan Crystal does, but I can't. So anyway, so we did actually. This was an inspiration from what Folsom did at Sutter Street, where they went down. They kind of built some enclosures, parklets, they call it, for people to eat outside because restaurants were closed inside. And so Mason Williams, one of our great young leaders, he leads our student ministries here and is a great teacher. He actually had this vision, hey, why don't we do that in our 4th Street downtown area? Wow. They were going to close it off. And really, a lot of these businesses have already taken hit after hit. So they don't have a lot, they're not flush with cash. And not only that, but their workers. I was talking to one guy who owns a business there. He said he just brought back 30 workers who have been hit the hardest. They're the minimum wage, living on tips kind of people. And he said, I was devastated thinking I was going to have to shut down again. And so Mason said, let's build these. He went downtown. We built a total of 13 of them. Wow. And they're huge. I ate there this today. I ate down there. They actually now have enabled them to stay open. There's just wide open seating, tons of room, and there's a lot of people that are down there. So
that's so great.
Really helped to bring people to the downtown.
Yeah. And
then inspired others around the city to do similar things to adjust to this, the restrictions that we have.
So being that it's in the Bay Area, and we know it's probably not as many churchgoers, I would say. Is that true?
True.
So share with me the letter you got from, was it the mayor or
well, we've gotten different correspondence, so multiple, but a couple stand out. One was from a business owner downtown. He said, I don't own a restaurant, but I'm down there. I know these people. And I was on a city call the other day, so with city leaders. And one of the leaders said, what did they do? And he explained it. And he said, I didn't even know there were any churches in Santa Rosa. Yeah,
he does now.
And another guy spoke up and he said, well, you know what? There obviously are, and they're way more generous than we ever imagined.
Oh.
Wow.
And so God is being glorified. They're seeing that the churches, they mean business, no pun intended, that they're serious about helping and loving the community.
Yeah.
And Russian River Brewing.
Yeah.
Just kind of a different thing, right? One of the parklets was outside of their restaurant, and they posted it on their Facebook page. Thank you, Bayside Church.
Oh man!
And Russian River is kind of it's actually a global phenomenon.
It
People
is.
come from all over
Yep.
the world to go there.
Great food. Woo.
And so, yeah, God's name is great and being magnified by the great work that Mason, Dan Ferguson, the college and high school ministries, and the volunteers did down there.
Fantastic. You know, I wanted you to share with those guys because I'm proud of you, man. And you're a man of many talents and organized.
I did nothing. I didn't organize anything. So my talent is explaining it.
Well, and there you have it. Good leaders are humble and don't care who gets the credit, and that's who you are, Dan. And we're so proud of you. We're also proud of the fact that you're here with us again. And before we get going, let's take it to God. Heavenly Father, God, these two men are just incredible friends, God, and they're friends to not only me but to many people, God, including this community that's here, eager to learn, eager to hear how they can just better their walk, God, and serve each other and serve the community and serve you, Father. So, Father, we lay everything tonight at the foot of the cross, God, that we come empty vessels. God, fill us up with what you would have us learn and hear tonight, God. These are extraordinary times, God, and we know that you're in control, but you know our hearts, God. A lot of us are hurting. So, Father, heal the ones who are hurting, God. Give them hope, God. Bless both Dans tonight, God, that their words would be yours. And Father, we lift you up. You're an amazing God. Thank you for your love and your mercy and your grace in Jesus' name. And his people said, Amen. Danny Houk, take the wheel, baby.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to say this. Tonight, we're going to have one of the most unusual conversations surrounding friendship and dating that maybe you have ever heard.
What?
So,
Come on.
I'm expecting some of you to weigh in and on the chat stream to weigh in and some questions. But it's going to be fun and I hope very eye-opening. So I was watching YouTube the other day. Have you guys ever watched YouTube where you're watching a video and then it automatically goes to the next one and the next one and the next one? And you start at 9 at night and at 2 in the morning, you've watched a million videos and you don't even remember them and your eyes are bloodshot?
Yeah.
Yeah, me neither. So, so anyway, I was watching YouTube and I saw this one come up and it intrigued my interest. Having been the singles pastor, it said, how do you know if they're the one? You know, isn't that something that everyone wants to know? How do you know if they're the one? And this guy has a YouTube channel. He has a ton of content, like it's just discipleship type stuff, you know, some really cool stuff. But he decided to tackle this one topic, and it got 1.7 million views.
What?
That one video, 1.7 million views. And in the comments section, I love reading the comments. I don't know if you guys do that too, while you're not staying up all night watching YouTube videos. But in the comment section, this one lady said, 1.7 million views for this thing on dating, and the highest other view he has on his other stuff, his theology, is 40,000. That shows you where, you know, sad state of affairs, or it was some negative comment about how I guess we should be watching his YouTube videos on the Trinity, you know, at equal level to the dating one. But I actually think that statistic is telling that there are that many people interested in the topic of dating or relationships related to romance, or and I firmly believe that the number one felt need, whether it's in the front of people's minds or in the back of people's minds for singles, the number one felt need, I think, has to do with being in a marriage or a relationship. It's not to say people are desperate. I'm just saying, if the right person came along, would they want to be in a marriage relationship with them? Like if the one came. And I've talked to widows, people who are totally happy in their marriages, and they say, I don't need to be married again. I'm not interested. But I've also known that sometimes the right one comes along and they had no plans to, but boom, they find themselves in a relationship. Or people that are super discouraged. It's never going to work for me. You know, there's a friend of ours who I think you know, Dave, pretty well, Denise Aspinall, who was in her 50s. She was pretty much done dating, right? She was done. She wrote a book, kind of a funny title called The Lord of the Ringless. And it was really about her journey as a single and really kind of embracing that. And she went to put the book on audio. So she got together with an audio engineer, started talking about it. Anyway, she fell in love with the audio engineer. And they ended up getting married. I actually officiated their wedding. So, hey, Tanya. So, anyway, so you never know when it's going to happen. And I firmly believe that that is the number one felt need of singles is, man, if the right person came along, I would want to be in a relationship. Now, I don't know if singles agree with me or not, but that is one of the reasons that I am writing the book with Chris Swatako on intentional relationships, because when I was at Bayside leading the singles ministry, I saw a lot of successes, and I saw the desire, and I saw the need, and some of the things we did that actually helped people. And so we're putting that together, and that's really what intentional relationships is all about, is kind of walking people through a process where they can build relationships that turn into dating relationships and potentially marriage. And so we're going to be talking about that tonight. Now, it's just not all about dating. It's also about friendships, because remember, we've been talking the last few weeks about that. But I do want to say this about marriage. If a single desires to be married, it is my firm belief that if that's what you want, that is also what God would want for you. That may sound weird to say, but I believe if a single wants to be married, I really think it breaks God's heart that they're not. And, you know, it might be that you might say, I don't know about that. But think about this for a minute. Do you think that God wants, peace in the world? Of course he does, right? He wants peace in the world, but we don't have it, do we? Do you think God wants all married couples to be happy in their marriages? Of course he does, but not all couples are happy in their marriages, right? God desires people to be healthy, but people have sicknesses and illnesses. So the lack of people being in relationships and being in marriages that they want, I think, has a lot to do with this broken world that we're in. We are in a broken world. And so a lot of people experience pain and suffering. They experience less than the ideal because of this world. And we also have an enemy. We have an enemy who does want to distort and undermine anything good God might want for you. So I think if those things are true, and I firmly believe they are, then what if we could begin to remove some of the barriers? And what if we could help people along the way to be able to have those relationships? There's never a promise, because we have to accept this broken world that we're in. But if we have an enemy and some of the obstacles we're experiencing are from him or from our culture or from ourselves even, wouldn't it be great if we could remove some of those barriers and give ourselves a better chance of getting that kind of dating relationship or marriage that we really want? And so I know that when I talk about this, there's got to be some people that are watching on YouTube or on Facebook that are saying, I'm kind of done with this topic because I'm discouraged. It hasn't happened for me, and I've tried it. I'm checking out. I'm done. And that may be true, and you may feel that way. But what I said before is still true, that in the back of your mind, if it could work out, you probably would want it to. And so I'm not saying it's universal, but I'm saying in general, I think that's true of singles. And so I know it was true of me. I went through that period of singleness. I know it was true of Dan. He went through his period of singleness. And so I think it's kind of a universal thing, and goes back to the garden, right? God created Adam, he created Eve. And so even though it's not going to always happen for everybody, I do think there's that ideal. So I don't know if you guys have anything to say about that. If you want to challenge me on it, you're welcome to.
Whoa.
You have the right to be wrong. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Oh.
You remember what Teresa said, Dan? Remember what Teresa said? You can be right and you can sleep on the couch.
Exactly. Have fun being right all by yourself. So we spent the last couple of weeks. I mean, the first week we talked about the giver and the receiver relationship, and that was pretty cool. Last week we really talked about that balanced relationship, which is kind of a combination of the two. And tonight we're going to talk about that balanced relationship, but in the context of how it can get us to dating. And so, and I personally think our culture has it wrong. I think even the way we've lived our lives and been trained in high school and all the things we've learned, a lot of times I really think we've been doing it wrong. And I'm going to explain why and what I think is the right way tonight. So I want to put up the first verse there. If you could get that up, Rich, that'd be great. So this is a verse out of Romans 12, 9 and 10. I think if you guys memorize this verse or wrote it on a sticky note and put it in your car and say, this is going to be my new life verse, I think this would be a powerful verse that could help you in your friendships and building the kinds of deep, loving friendships that we all want. So Romans 12, 9, 10 says, let love be genuine, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good, love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor. And so you can go ahead and take that down, Rich. So I think this is key. The first thing it says is let love be genuine, right? Let it be real. And the first word for love that Paul uses there is agape. It's the self-sacrificial love. And so if you think about it, a self-sacrificial love that's not genuine really is probably a manipulative love. Because if you're doing something for somebody for something in return, then it's really not agape love.
Nope.
So that verse is telling us when we're giving to other people, make sure that our heart is right and we're giving because we're going to be showing agape love. We're giving self-sacrificially to that other person. And then Paul goes on to say, abhor evil. So that's obvious, right? We don't want to be evil. And the word evil is kind of interesting because a lot of people go, well, I'm not evil. So let's move on to the next topic. Well, the reality is the word evil is something that impacts all of us. Evil does not mean Hitler. You know, he's not the only evil person. In the Bible, the word for evil also kind of is the same word for wicked. And if you've ever had a candle, you know, a candle has a wick. The reason they call it a wick, even though it's a string, a wick is a woven, it's a twisted piece of string. So a wick is really twisted. That's what evil is. So evil is just anything that's not the way it should be. So in relationships, if we're twisting them a little, if we have a little bit of an angle, if we're not being 100% honest, we're not bringing health to our friendship. And so, and the last thing is, it says to give one another brotherly love and affection. So that's the word Philadelphia. It's a friendship kind of love. So if you have those things, like if you're self-sacrificial, if you are really trying to stay on the straight and narrow and be real in this relationship and honest, you're not trying to manipulate or twist. If you are bringing love to the friendship, that's going to be a very strong friendship. But then he ends it with saying this, outdo each other, showing honor. Think about this. Make honoring a contest. So, and the word honor there is really value. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the most valuable rugs in the world are not on the ground, they're on a wall to look at, right? We don't want to walk on things that are valuable. We want to honor things that are valuable. So just real quick in the chat string, why don't you put some things in there that you think that are of high value, why people or why friends have such value, why we're supposed to hold them in high esteem and value. Go ahead and real quick, why should we value these people that are in our lives, these friends that are in our lives? Let's see if we can get a few going. What about you guys? What do you think? Why should we value people? Dan, you got any ideas, or Shafe?
Oh, you're
Yeah, I'm asking you two.
oh, okay. Thought you were
Oh, okay. I thought you were
While they're
waiting for
putting it
somebody
in
to pop it in.
Well, while they're putting it in the chat stream, I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Go ahead, Dan.
I think that honor is something that is lost in our society right now, and for a long time, actually. If you think back to like Tokyo, Japan, and China, and other countries where honor was literally something that if it was stolen, that person then felt as if they needed to regain that honor in people's lives. So it was held in high esteem to receive honor. And yet the scripture tells us that we need to honor each other. Like, that is a mandate. It's not a suggestion. It's not something where we are said, oh, if you feel like it, honor someone, or only if they do something good, honor them. It is literally a mandate to honor others above ourselves and to not think of ourselves as higher than we ought.
Right.
So for me, it's something where, and I'll tell you what, in our closest relationships, it's the most difficult on a daily basis to do.
Right.
Like, it's easier to honor your coworker that you only see once or twice or once a day than it is to honor even your own spouse in your own home when you see them and spend time with them all the time. But that's where we need to work on it the most, right? Is it with those who are closest to us. And if we can't do that with those who are in the body of Christ, how in the world can we be expected to show that honor to anyone else? Yeah. So you happen to touch on a subject for me that is I take incredibly seriously into heart, and I love what you said, Dan. Make honor a competition. I think that it's so incredibly important that we don't do it for the sake. I know you're not saying this. We don't do it for the sake of trying to outdo someone.
Right.
We do it because that's what we actually do value and honor others. And as I've always said before, we see someone through the eyes of God the Father, that they are and were worth the life of Jesus on the cross. And for that reason alone, we can show honor to someone.
That is good, Dan. I mean, if Jesus thought that was important enough to give his life for, that says something about him, right?
Yeah.
They have the highest value. So, Dave, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think we've been talking a lot in this series about how do I know if it's a friendship or not?
Yeah.
If there's no honor, it's probably not something you want to be involved in, honestly.
Yeah.
I think when we honor others, it really keeps our motives and ourself in check.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but boy, sometimes I struggle with that, man. There's no question about it. I'm better than I used to be by the grace of God, but keeping all that even keeled and in check, that's important. And God knows how we are. He says, look, this is not an option. You're supposed to love each other. You're supposed to honor each other, period.
That's it. And we're getting a lot of the similar comments because they're God's children, because we're called by God's commandments to love them. They're made in God's image, which is what Dan was saying, essentially. Companionship, we should value them, because I think I mentioned this last week, but really interesting to think that God creates Adam in the garden. Adam has a relationship with God. What else does he need, right? He's got everything he needs. But no, the only time in that creation story, the only time God said it is not good was then. He said, it's not good for man to be alone. I'll create a helper suitable for him. And he creates Eve. So there is high value that people have because they're made in God's image, but they do provide companionship. And being in relationship makes both them better and us better. We kind of ended on that verse last week of as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another, right? And so there's value that other people have intrinsically to offer us, and there's value that we have to offer others. And so we are supposed to hold people in high esteem for a multitude of reasons. And I think relationships break down when we stop looking at it that way. Marriages end when they stop looking at others and stop honoring and valuing their spouse the way they should.
Yeah.
And I mean, it happens in all kinds of parents and child. It's happening in our culture. Just like Dan said, we all you have to do is turn on the news and you're watching people devalue and dishonor others.
Yeah.
And so, that verse is huge. So the next verse I want to show you now, this verse really is the typical method that we do when we date. And I think we ended last week with this too. This is out of Judges. Samson went down to Timnah and saw there a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I have seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. So you can go ahead and pull that down, Rich. But so really, he got all the information he needed just by looking at her, right? What else do you need? So what do you think he saw in her? Was it character? Let's not go there. It wasn't anything that was good. It was something that was superficial for sure. And last week we ended talking about marriages that were love-based, where we make a choice in our culture, and then like in India where they have arranged marriages. And we discussed that they actually have a higher level of marital satisfaction in India. And I looked it up again. And so I guess the way the graph goes is in India, when somebody gets married, they start off kind of with a low level of satisfaction and they go up. And people in America start with a high level of satisfaction and they go down. So they crisscross at some point. And that makes sense. So if you're marrying somebody you don't know really well, that would make sense, right? But the reality is there is a typical cycle that we get involved in love-based relationships, love-based, dating, that I'm going to display for you. So, Rich, if you pull that up, I'm going to show this first one. This is your typical dating to friendship cycle. So we have the stranger that we meet. We see the stranger at a singles event, or we see them out in public, or it could be anywhere, grocery store. And it might be because we're in proximity. That what drives us to become an acquaintance with them is a conversation we have. Who knows? Maybe we work together, but at some point we move from that stranger to an acquaintance. Acquaintance is basically just a low-level friendship. If you see someone every week at singles ministry and you're sitting at the table, of course we don't now, but back in the day, millions of years ago.
Remember that?
I remember there was a time when we saw people in person. So if you see somebody and you say hi to them, they may still fall in the stranger category. But if you've had a few conversations, you've got an acquaintance. You got a low-level friend. But what often happens is from there, you see somebody, and I've done it, everybody's done it. You scan the room, you see, oh, they're cute or whatever, And so there's an attraction, and then that attraction drives you to maybe want to date. Maybe there's a mutual attraction. When you start dating, and I'm not saying a date, okay? Dating would be that step where you're going on several dates. You're getting to know them, but there's a lot of hope. There's the butterflies. There's all those things that go on with dating. But in that dating relationship, because you're invested, there's something about them you really like and you want, you have expectations, and you begin investing in a friendship because you want it to work out. You really want this dating relationship to work out. So you start with dating, and then really you become friends in the course of the dating process until the red flags, right? The yellow flags, the red flags, the checkered flags. No, the checkered flags is not. That doesn't happen. But
marriage.
yeah, the checkered flag is the marriage. So, so when those things begin to happen, you're trying to build a friendship, but the friendship initially really is based on your desire for that dating relationship and marriage. So because you're doing that, when this happens, you get discouraged, the breakup happens, you're broken, and then you have to go through a recovery process and start all over. I'm not saying this is all the time, but I'm saying generally this is the dating cycle. It's been for me, it's been for tons of you. You've seen this happen over and over again. So if you could go to the next slide, I want to kind of describe what's happening during that dating cycle. So during that dating cycle, when you meet a stranger, you have no investment, no commitment to them, no intimacy with them. And as you move through the process and become a friend, an acquaintance, you have a low level of investment. You spend a little time talking, a little time getting to know, but you still have low level commitment. You don't know them that well. You know them a little intimacy. But if you want to start dating them, then what you do is you begin putting in a high level of investment. You spend a lot of time talking on the phone. You go out a lot, but still you have a low level of commitment because you're just getting to know them. They're low level friends, right? So, but you're dating. So you have a commitment, but it's not high. You're developing intimacy, a little intimacy. Your hope is probably pretty high though. That's where it starts off, like, I got a lot of hope for this. As you begin building that friendship and you move to the next section, now your investment still is high. Your commitment may be starting to go up a little. Your intimacy is going up. Your hope remains high. But if in the process of that friendship, like I described before, the red flags, the things begin to come up, it leads to that breakup. And when the breakup happens, you now have no investment anymore. You have no commitment anymore, but you had high intimacy, and now you have a high heartache. I don't know if anybody can identify with this, but this is what I see play out over and over and over and over again. It played out in my life over and over and over and over again. So here's what I'm suggesting. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Next slide, Rich. So if we switch this up a little bit, and in our book, we really expand on this, but I'm not going to expand on it tonight. But if we started with the stranger, the same no commitment, investment, intimacy to low investment, commitment, intimacy, the acquaintance, okay, that's all the same. But then we say, you know what, I want to build a friendship with this person. Then what happens is even if you get the butterflies, but you're saying to yourself, you're going to keep yourself in check. You're going to say, I'm going to build a friendship. And you may have 8 friendships going on at once with different people, right? Your investment isn't super high.
Yeah.
You're not spending every waking moment. You're not spending every weekend night. You've got some boundaries. You've got a governor on the engine that's driving this friendship forward. The commitment's not super high yet either, kind of a moderate level. The intimacy level goes up slower. Your expectations are lower because you're building a friendship. You're not building a marriage. And as you do that, you may find out this person's a good friend. I'm going to keep him as a friend, but I don't want to date him. I'm just going to keep him in the friend zone. And then you can, if you want though, if things work well and you really get to know them, then you can move into the dating relationship. And at that point, you kind of both know each other to a certain level. So now that the investment goes up, your commitment probably is still in the middle, but it may be a little higher, and your intimacy is high. So before I get to the end here, what you've done is rather than do this, which is what the first one does, spikes up the intimacy and the investment time, but it doesn't have commitment, and then it drops down. What you're doing is you're building a friendship. You're on a line, you're building a friendship, growing, dating. And that dating relationship can then turn into, either stay as a friendship if it moves on, can turn into an engagement. Or if it's a breakup, the heartache is likely not going to be as high because you've been following a pattern. I think the odds of a breakup are potentially lower. Also, I think because you've taken the pressure off yourself and you've allowed yourself to go through this process that makes sense where you're growing. So I love what Jean Marie says, I'm looking for friends, not dates. I think that's a great approach.
100%.
And we've said it a million times. I think Michael's the one that came up with it, but a great date starts with a great friend, right? And so the whole dating world, like when you get on the you get on those apps, it's tough because what you're doing is you have a mindset of I'm dating, right? I'm going to start dating. So what do? You find a person that checks all the boxes, and then you call them up, or whatever you do now. You send them a email, a message, you wave, you swipe right, whatever, and then you go on a date, and then it doesn't work out. You go on another one, doesn't work out. You go on one, it works out for 2-3 months, then it breaks up. So the reality is what we're doing though is setting ourselves up this way for making good friends. Even if the dating thing doesn't happen, we're setting ourselves up to make good friends. Now, I'm not saying this is all going to work this way every time. However, I think the other way around puts the emphasis on the warm fuzzies, on the pitter patter of the heart, the things when we see somebody attractive. Ooh, I wonder if they make a good friend. So we let the chemistry drive the relationship, and then we hope that the friendship matches the chemistry that I'm feeling. And so having said that, the interesting thing about arranged marriages in India, I know way more about this than I should. I'm not Indian, but do you know that Indian families that have Indian kids, they don't always force them to have an arranged marriage. Like, especially in America, they're given a choice. Do you want us to help you pick a wife or husband, or do you want to do it? And the vast majority of Indian people in America choose to have an arranged marriage, even though they're here in a country that values and has movies about love-based marriages. Why would that be? Why would somebody want their parents picking out their spouse or their families, because it's aunts and uncles and sisters and brothers, everybody gets involved. Why would that be when they have the choice to just go out and, do the how to, lose a guy in 10 days thing and find true love, So, Olivia, I love that. Let's all move to India. Yeah, Olivia, you have to get your family to move there too. So I'm going to tell you what I believe the psychology behind what's going on in both of those scenarios and why it fits this cycle that I just told you about. So in a love-based marriage in America, psychologists have studied this. There's a heavy weight when you're deciding who to date, a heavy weight placed on external appearances. What kind of car he drives, what she looks like, how financially well off they might be. There's a lot of things that people look at and they may not realize it, and they may not value those things highly, but they can't help themselves. They weight those a little heavier. They've studied this. They know it's true. And so if that's your kind of lead in for who you want to date, then what you're looking for is a person that has those qualities, those looks and everything that you want, and you're hoping that the friendship matches it. And you're in charge of it all. You're a one-man or one-woman team doing all the work to find your spouse, right? In a arranged marriage, and I'm not advocating that Bayside begins an arranged marriage program. You sign up, we'll get you a wife or a husband, 30 days money back guarantee. So, but think about how you might emulate that approach. Okay, so what they do in India is the family gets together, they talk, they powwow about it. They think about their network of people. They might look at, they might even do the online dating thing where they're looking at, potential partners for their son or daughter, but everybody in the family is weighing in, and they're talking about the family values. They're talking about the faith that the family has. They look at things like in India, they have a caste system, which is completely bad. It's a horrific system. But if you don't know what a caste system is, it's basically there's 4 levels. There's 4 castes. If you're the highest level, you're the Brahmin. If you're the lowest level, you're untouchable. And it's their own discriminatory system they have. It's gone on for eons and it's still there. So that's even considered by the family. Like you can't marry out of your caste, So if you're a high level caste and your son is going to be a doctor, well, you want your daughter-in-law to be a physician or to be a professional or be educated or whatever. So they think of so many things when they're going through this process. There's a huge team of people narrowing down the pick. And then once they get it down to a select few, then the person, the son or the daughter, gets to interview these potential selections and give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And so usually they will go with and trust their family's choice. Yeah. No. And what parents are going to choose for their son or daughter a horrible in-law child to come into the family, right? So the families are highly invested in the success of the relationship. And so what I'm saying is, you can elicit help from friends. If you want to find a good friendship, you can still build those friendships. I'm not saying do this to start dating, but imagine how much pressure that takes. I'll bet you that's one of the motivations for people saying, yeah, I'll just do the arranged marriage, even though I'm here in America. It takes all the pressure off, Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead. You have a comment? Did you say something?
No, I said, yeah, I'm sure would take a lot of pressure off.
Yeah. James says their divorce needs a grand jury too. It's the divorce rate in India is 1%.
What?
Yeah, 1 out of 100. So now I'm not saying they're all happy. There's some marriages that are not happy, and there's a lot of problems with that too. But I'm just saying there's I think wisdom in not taking everything on themselves to pick a mate, and in bringing in the wisdom of the family and the counsel. And you have a whole bunch of people. Imagine if you had a team of 8 people working for you to find the perfect person for you,
I just thought of our new business plan. You ready?
You got
Since it's going to be Dave and Dan squared, that's what we'll call this. Okay. We're going to start an arranged dating service. And you come to us, you trust us to vet the person you're going to be connected to on a date. And then we arrange your date for you.
Yes, exactly. For a very small fee.
Talk about pressure. Come on.
There's a whole lot of pressure, you guys. There's a guy by the name, you can look him up, it's hilarious. A guy named Chris McKinley, and he's a genius. I think he went to MIT. He was one of those guys. Do you remember the movie where those MIT guys went to Vegas and to Atlantic City and they gambled, played 21, and he did that. Okay, so he's a brilliant guy, and he was on this online service called OkCupid. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. He hacked it. I mean, he totally hacked it. So the way they do the OkCupid is they have you answer some questions, and they're somewhat random, but then they match you up with other people which have also answered those questions. And he soon realized that he had 6 dates in, I don't know how long, he was 35, and he had no luck. So he realized that the system they had was not working well. So he actually created some phony online profiles and ran a bot, some sort of, he hacked the system so that he got way more data about the questions that the women were answering. And he discovered what his match really was. And instead of just having a handful, he ended up with thousands of women, and he put them in different categories. And he found certain women that were much more compatible with him. And all of a sudden, these women were saying, "Oh man, you're a nerd, but you're also outdoorsy." And what he did was, on his own, created an army of people that were looking for him, right? And I personally think, this is kind of one of my visions and one of my hopes is, because I think Chris Talk was on earlier. Oh yeah, she's on now again. Cool.
Yeah, check this out. She just wrote, I worked at a church and there was a married couple that would meet with you to tell you what is wrong with you. You can't marry. Crazy, but it worked. People had no idea that they were the problem.
Okay.
I think that was Simon Cowell and his wife. I'm not pretty sure that was Simon Cowell and his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get a toothbrush. Oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and think about that for a minute. That's love, right? That's love. Yeah. So if somebody really wanted to get in a relationship and there was a couple there that was saying, "Hey, let's talk about it. What's going on?" I mean, I'm sure it wasn't as simple as "you're an idiot," kind of like Simon Cowell does. Never sing again. But they knew the people and they were helping them. And I think it sounds like the people received the feedback. So here's the premise of what I'm getting at tonight. Take some pressure off yourself when it comes to dating. But if you want a relationship, if you want to date and you want to get married, start being intentional about building lots of friendships with the right kind of people. Elicit the help of other people in your tribe, right? If you have the most dysfunctional family in the world, don't get their help. So get help from people like this couple that Chris was talking about that want to see you succeed, and get them involved in the process, or your pastor, and I would venture to say that if we started moving towards it, what the devil wants to do is for you to be discouraged, for you to feel like there's no hope, and for you to give up. And I don't think you have to have the expectations, hey, if I do what Dan says, then I'm for sure, he said 30 days I'd be married, but you would at least have more good friends.
Dan.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you took a breath back. You definitely weren't done.
Yeah.
I will wait. I will yield.
Preach. I'll keep preaching.
Just reclaim your time, Dan. Reclaim your time. I'm sorry. That was a bad joke.
So,
classic.
Yeah. So I do think that there's a lot more to it, right? There's way more to it, because I haven't even got into kind of some of the nuts and bolts of it, because when you're building a friendship, I still think people maybe skip ahead and they miss some important things. They don't understand boundaries, number one, or flags, both red and yellow. And so I think some of those things can trip you up, and that's probably a longer conversation. But in general, I don't think you can go wrong by leaving tonight and saying, you know what, I do want to get married someday.
Yeah.
So how much could it hurt if I just told my friends that I trusted, you know what, if you have any friends, talk to me about them first. Don't set me up on a blind date. Just talk to me about them. Or, hey, I've been struggling in my dating life, and I want to start making friendships. But is there something that you need to tell me? Is there something I need to hear? And if you begin to do that, I think you would find doors open up a little more. It's a tough world, but why not set yourself up for the maximum success that you possibly can have by not having one more dating relationship that goes 6 months to a year and 3 months of healing, or another year of healing or whatever, and then or just a drought of men or women, and then another. Why not build lots and lots of friendships, and in the process realize that some of those friendships could be a lot more. That's somebody I want to date, and doing it in a way that helps you ramp up rather than these spikes up and down roller coaster that we have all been on in the dating world.
Yeah.
So
I'm just loving where you're going with this, and I was thinking a lot along the lines of about what I wrote about the 8 levels of relationship and how we jump way ahead way too fast. Like I think an acquaintance is literally just someone you've know exists and that you've met. They're an acquaintance right there.
Right.
I mean, as soon as you know they exist and you've met them, they're an acquaintance. But I think that right now, just an encouragement with what's going on right now is that this is actually an incredible time to get to know people on a deeper communication level.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I, when we first met, we actually met on AOL on different sides of the country.
You've got
Mail. That's our movie. So, but we literally met on online and then emailed back and forth for a little bit and then talked on the phone for 2.5 months before we actually met in person. And then we spent another 2 months before we met in person. And by that time we had we had questions and we had conversations. We talked about life. We talked about frustrations, good things, bad things, history. I mean, that's all we could really do was do that. And by the time we had actually gotten married, we had a really healthy history together of having to work through like that long distance insecurity kind of stuff you go through. And I think that sometimes we are so clouded by being together. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be together, but I'm saying this time hopefully has helped us reset and say, you know what? I'm going to take the time to get to know someone for who they are, not for what they look like, or not for what their job is, or not for what their family situation is. I want to know who this person is. And so when we do come back together again in person, whether that's sometime in September, October, I don't know, or whatever, I think that we should all be able to walk into that room going, you know what? I've spent all this time before COVID worried about what I look like, worried about, well, I mean, obviously we should all care about our breath. That's a big, we should all care about that. But masks now will help us even mask that. So, but I think that it's a great time for us to be able to reset our thinking on what friendship and relationship is. So Dan, this has been an incredible 3 weeks of discussion, and what a great way to finalize this tonight.
Yeah. You know, so one of the things I think all of us have been in a situation, I'm sure the three of us and all you guys who are listening, where you see your friend in a relationship. And if you have close friends, you guys, I implore you to listen to them, because I mean, it's happened time and time again where like a friend or somebody from ministry, you know, somebody in our ministry, they're hooked on this person, their family, their friends, nobody thinks it's a good idea. And it always, never do I see it turn out good. And I would say, I got a friend that's just getting through one of these. And I think he learned a little bit about himself, that he's a fixer. He's one of those people that thinks he needs to help folks. You do. You can help people, but all of a sudden he's excluded all of his friends, all of his family, because I mean, it's so you guys listen to your friends, use their advice. And even though you may be up way emotionally where you should heed their advice, because they love you and they're trying to help you, you know, as opposed to having to come to D squared for the marriage arrangement.
Yes, you don't want the D squared marriage. Wait, D cubed.
No, the Acme marriage arrangement.
The Acme marriage arrangement. No, we're just promising dating arrangement, not marriages, guys.
Okay, right, that's right.
That's too long of a contract. We can't.
So
Yeah,
hey,
hey, if anybody, is it time to go, or do you have time for questions?
There are a couple of good ones that came up, and I asked Rich to make sure. Oh, one of my favorite people. Hello, Lisa.
Lisa.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. I know we're supposed to be equally yoked with our partner, but how do you do that when you also shouldn't be a complete complement of the other person?
That kind of depends on how you define equally yoked.
Yeah, I think there's two different equally yoked things I hear people talk about. One would be of the same faith,
Spiritual.
so, and I would say of the same faith, like not just Christian, big C, but like if someone's Catholic. I know of a relationship where somebody married a Catholic person who was a Christian, Protestant Christian, and that marriage ended because of something to do with the Catholic faith. And so I think you have to make sure that they're really the same faith, right? Not just we're both Christians, we grew up in America. And then the other thing is, I think that there's the equally yoked with kind of how involved you are in church. Maybe someone is a believer, they have a profession of faith, but they really don't like going to church that much. You do, you want to be involved. So I think you got to kind of make sure that you're going the same direction. Now you said, but how do you do that when you also shouldn't be a complete complement to the other person? I don't know. I'm trying to think of exactly what you mean, Lisa. I think that there's certain things you want to have with somebody. The equally yoked. There's a lot of other character things you want to make sure they have good character. But Teresa, Teresa, you're good friends with her. She loves bookkeeping. She loves numbers because at the end of the day, numbers don't complain. Numbers make sense, but she also loved singles ministry. She loved doing singles ministry, and that's kind of how we built our relationship when we were both there at Bayside. But we still get along great, and we're still very complimentary. So I think it can be different. And it's weird because sometimes you see different ways you're complementary in the marriage as you grow, right? So I think a lot of it has more to do with your faith and some of the major important things in a relationship, trust. And,
yeah. Well, let's go back to the whole. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Well, one of the things when I was dating Mary Kay, and number one, the faith was number one, and we knew about. But then as we got to know each other, and we would talk about, like, okay, we're gonna have kids. Well, this is what we're not gonna do. This is what I don't want to do. What about you? So we talked about those types of things, and as a relationship grew, we knew it was important that she had her friends, I had my friends. We, as long as they're not detrimental to our relationship, obviously, but the kids, making sure that just all the important things that that were important to both of us. There were some things we absolutely didn't agree on, but we just decided, hey, I'll tell you what we did agree on, and that was sports.
Yeah. Both Giants fans, Niners fans. Chris,
let me just.
Okay.
Well, let me just add this real quick because I know you're about to read Christine's thing, but when I think of unequally yoked, I mean, I'm not sure if everybody can see this, but I think of this.
Yikes!
So if you go back to what a yoke actually is, it's meant to connect two oxen that are. Their purpose is to literally move forward. That's all they know.
Yep.
They're not the farmer. They're not the one doing the farming. That's God, right? God's the one who is driving that. But when we're connected to someone else in some way, that means we're literally moving forward together. But if one person's like, I don't want to do that, I'm just going to lay down, and the other person wants to move forward, there you have a big issue that needs to be on the table. You need to talk about that, and that could be a real major problem in a relationship.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what Chris Wataka was saying. She was basically saying, in goals, I met one lady one time who was miserable in her marriage, and she, whatever love languages was, quality time, and she married an over-the-road truck driver that's home 30 days a year, 30 nights a year. So I don't know how that decision was made, but they weren't equally yoked.
That's
They
right.
were completely different needs. And so I think those are the things you look at. How do we line up in these areas? Do we have the same goals? Are we going the same direction? Like Chris said, are we both interested in growth? You know, if one person's constantly defensive and they can't hear anything negative, that's a hard relationship to be in. So, yeah, that was good, Dan. I like that word picture.
You're bringing me down.
Not going anywhere. Not going anywhere with one of them's laying down. Not happening.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any more. Somebody says differences between negotiables and non-negotiables. That kind of, I mean, that could be so many different things. Esteline, I don't know if I said that right. And that's kind of yellow flags, red flags, right? Red flags tend to be character related. So addictions, you know, actually, you know, interestingly enough, pornography, very sadly, is, I think, I don't want to scare you ladies, but I think it's probably 60-70%, even in the church. That guys, if you're on here listening to our voice, deal with that right now, because that will ruin a relationship. As soon as a woman finds out, if you're dating, if you're a friend and a woman finds out you're doing that, you won't be dating, and if you're dating, you won't be dating long. So it's an epidemic, far worse than COVID right now. We got people that are involved in pornography, and it's just, the devil has just gotten his tentacles everywhere. But things like that, addictions, dishonesty, there could be even cultural differences in families, you know, that aren't, it's not a bad person, but you just won't do that. You won't do what they're doing. So there's a lot of difference that could be red flags that you need to talk through and decide if that's something you can live with.
I just got a PM from Lisa Z, and she said, everything you guys are talking about tonight, I was just talking to my friend with. That's really cool.
That is cool.
Awesome.
Hey, Dave, I'm wondering, before we answer this quick, but from Peter, and I'll read it in a second, but I'm wondering if everybody, because Heather mentioned there's some questions we didn't get answered last week. So
Yes.
it'd be really cool, maybe if everyone could just private message Bayside Singles or Dave Schaefer or Dan Houk or Dan Crystal on Facebook. And we'll actually start working through some of those maybe in the future. That'd be great. But Peter, if you're both friends, how do you, quote, safely, unquote, move to a dating situation without risking the friendship? I don't think it's possible to not risk a friendship. It's impossible, actually, to not risk the friendship when you go that direction.
Right.
So, but I think safely moving to a dating situation means that you both have to be in agreement on that's where you're headed. And so you're going to take that risk together. One person can't take that risk and the other person sits back and says, no, I'm not going to do it. That doesn't work. You both have to agree on taking that step and saying, I recognize that when we take this step, we're actually putting that friendship at risk.
Yeah.
I've seen quite a few dating relationships that started off as friendships that moved then back to a dating relationship. I've also seen others that could not continue after it was over. But you are still certainly setting yourself up for a much greater chance for success if you already know the person before you're beginning to really give your heart to them, and all the level of time commitment, you know, or your investment. And so you can't be like, nothing's sure, nothing's certain.
And Peter said, he just wrote back and said, okay, so being vulnerable. And that's exactly what we're talking about. Yep. You can't move forward without vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a risk, but the payoff can be great. That's for sure.
Yeah, you know, it's Amy Marie said, my Christian sister and her atheist husband celebrated the 17th anniversary a couple of days ago. They're evenly yoked in everything but their beliefs. So I mean, I can see that happening. Here's the thing. I mean, there's two things about a Christian marrying a non-Christian. One is God says not to do it, right? And so I'm no casting aspersions on your sister, because I don't doubt that they're very happy. I've heard those kinds of relationships working out as far as being happy marriages. But there is, if you think about it, there's a part of you that's the most important part of you that you cannot share with the other person. And really, I mean, at some point we're going to be in heaven with him, right? And so I think you got to kind of weigh all those things. There's always anomalies. There's a guy that I met at Bayside a number of years ago, and he was saying, man, when this woman walked in my store, I saw her and I knew she's the one. And within 2 weeks, we were married, and we have been happily married for 30 years. And I said, stay the heck away from my singles with that story. Because that may be true in 1 out of 1,000 cases, right?
Percent.
But there's so many other cases where those kinds of things don't work out, and it's best to listen to God and follow what he says. So.
Last question. Carl Snyder says, hey, Carl, it's past your bedtime on the East Coast there, buddy. Time
coffee.
What if you've been so hurt in past relationship that you can't help but bring the pain with you into the new relationship?
I think that great question, Carl. I think that's where you have to ask yourself, am I ready? Right.
Yeah.
So if you are going to bring pain into a new relationship, that identifies that you're not ready. And you can talk to a counselor about it or pastor about it or somebody, work through the pain, get yourself ready. And then you can get into the next relationship. But I've had to heal. Like I didn't get out of a relationship and the next day I'm ready to go again. Sometimes it takes time to heal.
Another thing too about that is that when you think about pain, there's pain that you heal from, but then there's the memory of the pain, right? There's the memory of the pain can sometimes be more influential in your thinking and how you live your life than the actual pain itself. And so, like I know that Tanya and I, we've been married now for 22 and a half years. There's still this deep-seated reminder of a pain that keeps coming up in my own life. And then it'll impact my relationship with Tanya, and then we got to talk it through, and then I got to go through another healing process.
Yeah.
So in healthy relationships that move forward, if you've healed, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be reliving some of that, because the memory of the pain is still there. And so we have to learn in relationship how to have those things vulnerably on the table, to where when they actually do come up, that relationship is strong enough to bear the weight of the memory of that pain.
And that is really good. I think
that's really
you hit the nail on the head, but I'm going to add one thing to it, and I'm going to call this a profound truth bomb.
I'm ready for the microphone.
You ready? Are you ready?
PTB.
I know this is true in my own broken relationships in my history. I know it's true of yours. Often the most painful thing that causes us the most pain is actually our expectation, which was a fantasy. It's the grief over the fantasy that we thought the relationship would be, not always the actual relationship. Like, that's why divorces happen, because people are miserable. They can't do it anymore and they end it. But sometimes when you're dating and you end a relationship, you think, oh, if only it would have been this way. And I know many, many times what I was in love with was the fantasy, and what I grieved was the fantasy of the relationship, not what it actually was. And then sometimes in counseling, you can talk through those and really see it for what it was, and it's helpful. So
I love what Christine says. If you don't take the time to heal, you will end up bleeding on those that never hurt you. So take the time.
Yeah.
That's a good quote.
It's
yeah, Amy, good point. Agree with you 100%.
Healing is difficult, and but I agree with what you said. You're going to have those memories, and you know what? I think memories are reminders, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And certainly we've gone through some bad times, but when I think of those bad times and I look where my life is now, it's actually an affirmation. It's like, look, we turned the corner here. And I think that we're not so good about affirming ourselves.
Yeah.
Like I always tell people, you can't be harder on yourself than God is, you know.
Yep.
You know, give yourself a break. But what a great night. Boy, these go so fast. And man, I'm looking up, it's a quarter to 9 already.
Wow.
But so great to have Dan Houk and Dan Crystal. You guys are phenomenal teachers, phenomenal men. And we're really grateful for your influence in this ministry and in my life personally. So
love you, Dave. Love you, Dan.
Love you, Dave.
guys.
Love you, Dan.
hey, Dan Crystal, why don't you pray us out?
Let's do that. Right now, where everybody is listening on Facebook, watching or watching this later, just take a moment and just thank the Lord for what he's done in your life, because you wouldn't be where you are today without what he's already done, but he's still not finished. Heavenly Father, we want to thank you so much for the road and the path that each of us are on. I'm reminded of a story I once heard where there's the mountain of God, and we're all climbing up that mountain. Not every one of us is at the same level. But there are some of us that are looking down the mountain, and we're shouting out, "Hey, this is the way you should go." And Lord, I pray that as we all are making our way up to the mountain of God, that we're reminded that what waits at the end is hope. What waits at the end is the hope of life eternal with our Father in heaven and Jesus, who made that sacrifice for us. Mm-hmm. This pain that we experience here on this earth is momentary pain. This trouble that we experience is momentary trouble. But we live for a hope that's way greater and way beyond what we're experiencing right now. So Lord, I pray that that hope would rest in everyone's hearts tonight. And that as we close out this night, as we make our way to the next day, that we will always remember our hope is found in you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Dan. And Dan, you guys, we'll be back here next week, you guys, and have a great week. We will see you next week. Be good to yourselves.
Take care, guys.